guys. It's time for another After Dark episode of the Good Anime Palette podcast. This is one of your co-hosts, Will. I've also got my other co-host here, Jason. How you doing, Eddie?
Yo, what's up?
So, we've been trying to get more of these ADs out, these After Dark episodes out. I think we've got a pretty good formula going on in terms of releasing them every so often. I mean, it's a little bit different from how we do our regular episodes. So it's always fun to do deep dives, character analyses, or just things that are a little bit different from the discussion topics from our regular episodes.
And spoiler talks, too. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do After Darks is because it's really difficult to put it in a numbered episode. But in an After Dark, free reign.
Yeah, especially when we do our regular episodes, we want to be able to introduce, if not highlight, some of the shows that we've been watching, or even some of the hidden gems of studios and directors that you may know of, but haven't really checked out particular series. Where this gives us the platform to really dive deep into certain shows, and with free reign, we don't have to be hamstrung by not revealing everything. We can discuss certain tropes, certain topics, certain characters, and certain endings as well.
So what are we discussing today, Will?
So this one's gonna be a good one. As you guys may have already known, or just have not stopped hearing me talk about it. One of my most favorite anime series of all time is Tatami Galaxy. Now, Tatami Galaxy was done a couple years ago by one of my favorite directors of all time. He is none other than Masaaki Yuasa. So Masaaki Yuasa, he's got a very, very interesting and stellar and very well-respected career, but it hasn't always been easy for him. And so, we wanted to spend, the next hour or two, hopefully more an hour than two, to go over, his upbringing, the sort of work that he's been doing, where he really got to start, major breakthroughs, and generally how we feel about the properties that he's produced. We've watched a fair amount, if not like 75% of the major works he's done, where he's been in key roles rather than in support roles.
And we will tell you not only our thoughts on these various works that director Yuasa has done, but also where you can watch them. Because unfortunately, not everything is readily available, so even we couldn't watch some of his work.
Yeah, so we're going to go through, I guess in some order in terms of, who Yuasa is, how he got to start, the sort of trials and tribulations he experienced at the beginning of his career, when he was able to finally get, a good foothold in the industry. And one part that I'm pretty interested to get into as well is doing our own critical analysis of the works he's done, because a lot of the stuff he does is very different from the standard anime production. Of course, it's like every director, every creator should have their own flair, their own touch, and their own taste. But I think none more apparent than in Yuasa's work do you see a stark contrast to the typical anime, the typical series that people tend to produce on TV.
So, just to give you a quick rundown of Masaaki Yuasa, he is 56 of age this year. He is born on March 16th, 1965. We're not going to go into the whole Japanese thing of blood types, because I don't even know what his blood type is. But
we can ask him ourselves when we finally get to meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his hometown is Fukuoka in Japan. Now, this is part of the Kyushu region, which is the southern part of Japan. Personally, my favorite part of Japan.
I've always had very fond memories of Fukuoka just being very pleasant, very chilled, laid-back town.
It's one of the places where you can actually see families. You can actually see young children with their parents playing in the park. You have young couples going around and enjoying times at coffee shops. It's a very laid-back city within Japan. You think about Japan, it's neon lights, hustle bustle, loud noises, lots of colors and food and smells and everything. Fukuoka is pretty much one of those places where it's an urban suburbia. I really like Fukuoka. It's my favorite place to go. I go there, pre-COVID times, I would go there once, maybe even twice a year. just the food's great. People are extremely friendly, and there's also a lot of creative types down there too. There's a lot of a lot of art, a lot of museums. But the parks are gorgeous, and so maybe this was also sort of one of the many influences of Yuasa, and how he sort of started gearing his artistic vision, his artistic style.
So who exactly is Masaaki Yuasa? So he is a Japanese director, screenwriter, and animator in one sentence. We wouldn't focus too much on him as an animator, but we will focus a lot on him as a director and screenwriter. But we will also touch on his animation career as an animator as well. He graduated from Kyushu Sangyo University with a degree in fine arts and a focus on oil painting, which is like kind of crazy in the sense that having that kind of background is kind of different than your usual suspects who would have an interest in anime and manga and of that sort.
I think that and that inadvertently kind of bleeds into the styles of his works, right? Like you can, and not to say that because he did oil painting that therefore that's why he has this specific art style in the stuff he produces and animates, but you can see like from the beginning, early on in his life, he already had like a thirst for like trying to craft his artistic vision, craft his skills within the arts. It's it shouldn't come as a surprise that for him, coming out from a fine arts degree in oil painting.
And going through sort of interviews and his sort of background on his upbringing, he has said that he was initially drawn to TV anime through a series called Mazinger Z. Have you heard of it?
Yep, I did. I actually played a lot of old school PS1 games, which were those sort of like turn-based RPG strategy kind of games.
Is it like a mecha kind of thing?
Yes, Mazinger Z is a mecha.
Oh, okay, I see. But the other one that he is heavily drawn to in his youth was Space Battleship Yamato, which is
I think
classic.
it's a classic.
Classic space opera. I mean, there was live action.
You remember when we watched Shirobako? Like one of the episodes, they actually bring mention of this specific series. So like more often than not, even to this day, you will find anime series, you will find manga, you will find creators,
even live action
who
movies.
pay homage to it.
Yeah. So it is important to note that, of course, one of his landmarks, critical influences, is Lupin 3 by Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki. And Miyazaki is obviously, like, what would you say? Everyone knows him. There's nothing Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki, end of story.
He's basically like it's the Walt Disney of the anime world. Like you don't really talk about anime without mentioning at least one or two of Ghibli and Miyazaki's works.
But if we go about his foreign influences, he says that he also studied international animation with particular influences like Tex Avery, the British film Yellow Submarine, The King and the Mockingbird, and a French filmmaker by Paul Grimault.
Grimault. We're not French.
Yeah, we don't know. And The Fox and the Hound in 1981. Unfortunately, a lot of these I have, other than The Yellow Submarine, I have not heard of much of these.
Wait, you haven't watched Fox and the Hound?
No.
Ooh, okay. I'm not saying you have to go watch it, but yeah, it's a classic.
Like, it's good?
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not gonna say any more. I don't want to spoil it.
And obviously, because Yuasa has a degree in arts and oil painting, he also is influenced by the art of Salvador Dali.
Yeah, like if you haven't seen any of Dali's works, they're surreal as fuck.
Melted Clock.
Yeah, it's good work. You can see that there's influence from Dali's work that bleeds into the productions that Yuasa leads in his current works as well. So the art's everywhere, and I think for him, like, he respects the predecessors. He respects the influences that have impacted on his career. So all around, like, respecting. It's a good guy.
So, Will, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you want to sort of go into his life as an animator and then his relationship as a director and with other various members of the anime industry, or do you want to just go in the like his directorial themes and sensibilities right away, or how do you want to do this?
I think one thing I as much as it's like, oh, you want to give like the backstory of Yuasa, where he came from, who he worked with, those things are cool. But personally, for me, like the one thing that will always draw me to Yuasa's works is his style, his vision, his way of trying to create a story on screen, but at the same time having like the free reign of expression and creativity, so that he's not bogged down by anyone else's expectations outside of his own. It's no secret that whenever he works on anything, more often than not, he's going to have regular contributors to his works, whether it's the same assistant directors, the same cinematographers, the same animators. I actually did have a look and see in terms of how many voice actors he's worked with, and it seems that for the most part, all the shows, all the movies he's done, he does have different voice actors and actresses. I think that's one of the things where like it might be a little bit different, but I guess I could see why he would do that too. Because in the end, it's all about individualism for himself, right? In his sense of creativity, he wants to be able to create new things moving forward. So just we'll go in more focus about these two specific properties. But Atomic Galaxy as well as Night is Short is two of his I personally like my favorites properties. One of which is deemed like a spiritual successor, which is the Night is Short, to Tatami Galaxy. Now, there are several characters that either share the same model designs or are essentially the same character, but he'll have different voice actors and actresses doing the work for those recordings. So it's nice that even if there is continuity within the properties he does, he still tries to find like a fresh take. He still tries to find new ways to repackage a certain story, a certain character, a certain plot line.
And I think that Yuasa's style or philosophy on life is rather unique for a Japanese animator or just a Japanese, person in general. For example, he really believes in work hard, and then balance of rest. I think one of the things that he has said very adamantly about the anime industry is that he wants to move away from a culture of excessive working and long hours, which is emblematic of the whole industry and even just all of Asia, I would argue, as well.
And people would be like, well, isn't that just normal? Like, wouldn't anybody want to have shorter work hours, be able to, like just do what you need to do during the day and then just enjoy the rest of your time off? It's like, you would think that it's just that straightforward, but that's not the culture there.
And also the culture, even I think we both can speak for it in Hong Kong, and also having experiences in the Western world, that it really is different. Here, you're expected to, in Hong Kong at least, you're expected to work really hard.
I've had like firsthand experience, not myself, but like from friends who have worked in Japan, whether it is like like a corporate job, working as this English teacher through the JET program. Whatever.
I thought about that, by the way.
I actually thought about doing the JET program as well, but then I ended up getting an English teacher job here in Hong Kong, so I decided to stick around. But what he said was that even if he had done all the coursework he needed, he'd done all the markings, he had all the lesson plans ready for the next upcoming week, maybe even month, and he decided, I'm gonna leave early. I'm gonna finish up my job and then I'm gonna go off. It's time to clock out. Why not leave now? He found that it wasn't like he was disrespecting the school, the company, but it was like, well, why aren't you sticking around doing more work then? Why are you leaving so early? It's like always that mentality of, first to arrive, last to leave.
I mean, that you can say the same thing about some companies where the CEO, if he doesn't leave, no one leaves the office.
Yeah, but he also did mention too that there was one time where he was just chilling out after hours. It was like 7-8 p.m. at night. He was waiting for like the last train to get home. So he was like, well, why do I need to leave the school now? Just stick around and wait till the train comes. And then like one of the supervisors saw him like in the room, like in the classroom on his phone. He's like, oh, you're still around here. Oh, hey, good work. You're doing really, really well. It's like, What do you mean good work? I'm literally playing like I'm playing a game on my phone. I'm not really doing anything. But that's just general perception of what it means to, put in the hours, right? Literally putting in the hours, but not necessarily you doing any work. So Masaki's vision of trying to break that mold and go towards more like a merit-based kind of environment where if you do the work and you are actually able to get everything done earlier ahead of time, then like why not take the time off? Like, and even then, it's like you should still be able to have your weekends. You should be able to have decent hours after work to spend on your own, just spend with your family and friends.
And he has adopted that philosophy, work philosophy, with the studio that he founded, which is Science Saru, which we'll get into later. He also said that in order for the Japanese animation to achieve true global success, the industry must itself create a better work environment for its artists and creators. And I just cannot agree more, because just through our numbered episodes in our news section, you've heard of so many mangakas that are on hiatus or on sick leave, and they have no free time, or animators don't get paid enough, and they have to work long hours, and they just burn out. So
it's fresh to see, right? I mean, like, of course, he's probably not the only one, but he's probably also one of the few that would actually come out and like publicly state, look, there's something fundamentally wrong with the current state of the animation studios or even just work culture in general. I don't want to advocate that. I want people who work with me and work alongside me to also enjoy the fruits of life, to be able to, put in the work, clock off, spend time with your family, have dinner, get to bed at a reasonable hour.
And he is
like not one of those like work overtime and like start giving stuff in at 3 a.m. so you can go to sleep and wake up 3 hours later to go back into the office.
Dude, that was me one day.
Yeah, I've done that before as well.
So it is important to note that even though these opinions are not necessarily nuanced, Yuasa has a clout. Yuasa has the reputation now, such that when he says stuff like this, people will listen. Such that when he has created his own studio and put money where his mouth is and actually adopt this work philosophy, everyone takes notice. So I think that deserves credit and also highlight.
Yeah, and I think that then like bodes well with him giving his creators, his animators, anybody that works along with him, giving them free reign to sort of express themselves and do the things they want to do in order for them to kind of fulfill their vision of how a specific art or a specific series should look and should feel, right? I think for him, it's like one thing that you and I notice immediately whenever we see any work that is a Masaaki Yuasa work, it's sensory overload.
The color palette, the energy,
the sound design as well.
And even the hopeful message, which is rather rare nowadays.
I think for him as well, it's like the fact that he cranks the sound and the sight of his shows to like 11. It almost feels it's almost palpable. You can almost feel the color. You can almost like see and smell everything that is on screens. Like it's really trying to reach you on all different levels, and not just from the fact that you're looking at his work, not only just the fact that you're listening to his work. So being able to fully encapsulate someone's attention from all 5 senses is just something that he feels like, yo, this is it. This is the way that I want people to enjoy my art, because that's how I enjoy my art.
So Yuasa didn't start off as a director screenwriter, but started off as an animator after graduating from university. He started in a studio called Agiado, and he's hired as an in-between animator. Now, in-between animators, if you've listened to our episode 9, numbered episode of the Good Anime Pal podcast, you would know that in-between animations have a reputation for being very grunt work, because essentially you have key animators or key frames where it is the major plot points of a scene, and then all you do with in-between animations is bridge the two. So you're essentially drawing almost exactly the same drawing, but a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different, such that the first keyframe and the second keyframe is one fluid animation. You hear constantly like, oh, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second. Now, okay, 60 frames per second is usually for visual or for video games, but 30 frames per second is usually the amount of frames you need for 1 second of animation. So he was an in-between animator, and from what he says, it was grueling work. It was just not, creative. It just wasn't creative. It was just,
well, it's in a way it's just the glue to the anime, right? Like you're literally trying to paste one scene to another scene, but it's not like you're going to get massive credit for it. There's almost no creative input whatsoever. So what do you have to really flex your artistic brain other than to sort of maybe negotiate a different color palette or maybe a different range of movement from one to another? But outside of that, there's really not much else that goes into in-between animation.
And as you might expect with someone who is very creative focused, in between animator, Yuasa is just, was, lack of a better term, pretty terrible at it, because he wasn't able to flex his muscles. He even said like, oh, my drawing style is fast, intuitive, and rough, and that is not what you want for in between. You want consistency. You want robotic,
you want refined.
Exactly.
You want it to look good. It doesn't have to look amazing. It just needs to look good.
So then, his first major, I guess, important person in his career is the co-founder of Agiado, which was Osamu Kobayashi. And he actually saw Yuasa's work and says, hey, maybe you shouldn't do in-between animation. How about you try key animation? And then Yuasa's like, okay, I'll try. And then that literally started his animation career, and he became very well known for key animation. And he just did a whole bunch of anime TV series that we actually couldn't get our hands on. But needless to say, it makes perfect sense that he is a key animator person rather than an in-between animator person, wouldn't you say, Will?
Like you don't think of Yuasa as the guy that follows orders and is told to just regurgitate scene after scene after scene. It was like, yo, like I don't care if it looks good. I just need it to work. That's it. Okay, you do your work, but you need to do it like 1,000 times over so that we can make sure this 1 minute of anime looks good. Like you say that to Yuasa, and like his creative brain would just snap. It's like, this is what I'm signing up to. It's like, but I mean, like he was young, hungry, right? He wanted to work in the anime industry. Of course, he was going to be taking up work that he doesn't necessarily enjoy, but he's still able to do. But that doesn't necessarily flex his creative muscle. And then, luckily, he found someone who bought into his vision and gave him the opportunity to try something different.
And that took place in 2004 with a anime movie called Mind Game.
Should we go into Mind Game the analysis, or do you want to just talk about like his career path first, and then we'll talk about Mind Game?
I'll let you take the reins on this one, because we were going off to directing, so then I thought.
No, I don't want to go into the actual Mind Game just yet. We're going to leave that to later. We can talk about we'll go over the rest of his catalog, the other influences he had. But yeah, like Mind Game is, I guess, from a personal creative level, was a major breakthrough for him. But
yes,
financially, we'll leave in terms of later in the episode what it actually meant for his career and for the industry.
But needless to say, Mind Game was his first attempt at being a director. I would say after leaving Agiado, the next most important person in his life is the co-founder of Madhouse, who later would found MAPPA, is Masao Maruyama. At this point in Yuasa's career, he has already several works under his belt. And Maruyama was like, yo, why don't you come over to Madhouse? And I believe in your vision. I believe in taking risks. I have the funds. I have the vision that I believe your work is great.
Basically, he found someone to bankroll him, not only like
And
financially,
believe
but
in
also
him.
creativity as well.
So it's giving him creative freedom, and it's just willing to give him everything he wants. So, the co-founder of Madhouse, Maruyama, was extremely, extremely influential in Yuasa's career because he did 3 major works with Madhouse: Kimono Zume, Kaiba, and of course Will's favorite, the Tatami Galaxy. And he just went from a guy that was pretty well known to exploded into a guy that the name you would recognize anywhere. So then the other person that is very influential during this Madhouse collaboration period is Yoon Young Choi. Now, you heard it correctly. That is a South Korean woman. But she actually is pretty influential in the anime industry at the time and collaborated with Yuasa all the time, such that in, what year was it, Will? In
2005, right? She was working as a key animator for Gonzo Studios, but then after like hearing about Yuasa and seeing some of the works, she decided, you know what, I want to submit my portfolio. I want him to take a look at some of the work I've done, and immediately things just clicked, and they started working together. So like she's had influence, as a key animator for Kimono Zume. She's also worked on Kaiba, had a big part in Tatami Galaxy, and also worked on a few other Madhouse productions as well, like Catherine Sins. So she, in the beginning, already had like a pretty bright start in the industry. Then she started working more and more. She frequently collaborated with Yuasa, and then I think the major breakthrough, and this also coincides with the development in Masaaki Yuasa's life as well.
yeah.
The beginning of Sansaru.
So on February 4th, 2013, Yuasa and Eun-young Choi founded Science Saru, which is the animation studio that gives you all of Yuasa's works, at least most of it, until quite recently.
Yeah, this is of course like a passion project, but at the same time something that would be a revenue generator too. But very humble start, right? Just because you have creative vision and a lot of history behind you doesn't mean that it's going to carry into instant success. So it takes a while to build up. Like at the end of the first year of their existence, there were only 5 employees at Science Saru. Not a big team, but if you think about the sort of work that they've done, and sort of the output they've had, yeah, it might have taken time to produce stuff, but if they stuck to what Yuasa said and actually had time off, it probably wasn't as stressful an experience as if you were working at a large corporate animation studio with thousands of animators and go-in-betweens and assistant producers and all that, and you're running on deadlines of producing like 5 or 6 shows every day, every week. I would much rather work at a Science Saru than other big name production studios. Not to slate them, but it's clear that work-life balance was very important for Yuasa, and hopefully that translated over to his staff as well.
So from 2013 to 2020, Yuasa was the president and representative director of Science Saru. But in March 25th of 2020, he wanted to take a break from directing after 7 years of continuous work, but still wants to work with Science Saru, which is the studio that he founded. So at that point, Eun-young Choi became the current president and CEO of Science Saru, and I think his latest work, Inuo, is also produced by Science Saru.
Yeah, I think in the end, like, he's removed himself from an executive position within Science Saru, but he now classifies himself as an external consultant. So I mean, like, this is his baby, right? He produced it with his own hands, and he also had like a great team that supported him along the way. So even if he was to step down and take a break, like a small little like getaway from the animating industry, he's always there. You knock on his door and he'll help you out. Like, that's just the kind of guy Yuasa is.
So one thing that I would like to highlight about Science Saru is actually the name of Science Saru.
Oh, before that, anyway.
Yep.
So, Eun-young Choi is now the president, right?
Yeah, president and CEO.
She now is the leader at Science Saru. So not only is she, first of all, woman, non-Japanese, in an executive position in a tough industry. But I don't think that was ever like going to be a surprise because of the fact that she had been working with Yuasa for so long. Like she had been directing so many works like Kaiba, Ping Pong, also with Space Dandy. Again, these are all like specific episodes. But then moving forward,
They even did Adventure Time.
yeah.
One episode of Adventure Time, which I will get into because I watched it.
Then she also worked as an animation producer and also just full-fledged producer for a lot of other movies, right? Like Glue Over the Wall, Night of Short, Devilman Crybaby, Ride Your Wave, Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin, Japan Sinks. Like,
Which, to be fair, is all of Yuasa's work, but still, it shows that not only are they like loyal to one another, but she gets him clearly.
she just knows that, like, okay, this is the guy I'm working with because I've worked with him for almost 20 years. Well, no, actually, more like 10, 15 years.
It felt like 20.
This is the vision that he wants, and this is the vision that I want, and it's going to work together because we've done it so many times that there's like almost like no concern from whatsoever to just hand the keys over to Eunyoung and be like, it's yours now.
I just feel that she is a producer, right, at certain points. And that is extremely important because a lot of people, whether it's live action or animated or anything, don't really focus a lot on producers or the fame and clout of producers. They all care about the creative lead, the director, the actor, the script writer.
Yeah, that's why like in one of the interviews that Eunyoung had done shortly after taking the reins at Science Saru was she felt that now, like, yes, she can still always go to Yuasa if she ever needs a director to work on one of the shows that Science Saru is producing, but it also allows for her to explore the market, explore the industry, go and find an upcoming or just like an artistic developer, someone who wants to come in and just flex their creative brain.
I bet you they have each other on speed dial and are just like best buds.
Oh, they're BFFs for sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, they're godfathers and godmothers to each other's children.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, so that's the thing with like Yuasa. It's like he doesn't build like a team around him. He builds a family. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
Will.
No, but like you can see that in a lot of the shows that he produces, right? Like the whole idea of emotions, relationships, communication between characters, like none more salient than any of the stuff that he does, right? It's always like at the forefront. It's how communicating skills, like how characters communicate with each other, how they interact with each other, how they display their emotions on screen. Those are very, very key themes in his works.
And there's a lot of staff, like behind the scenes, like producers, chief producers, that have followed Yuasa and just collaborated with him since the beginning. So it comes to show that he really does care about the relationships with his staff.
It's not like Yuasa says jump, they say how high. It's more like Yuasa says let's jump together.
Oh, that's the best. That's a good way to put it, actually.
He's like, I hate to fucking like sugar him up even more, but he's the kind of guy where like you won't die for him because he's willing to be in the front lines with you as well. It's his artistic vision, and if everybody wants to share the same vision but also add their own flair, he will not stand in your way to do it.
Okay, so can I go back to the name of Science Saru?
Yeah, that's good. That's it now.
Okay. So
it's Saru, actually. Saru means
monkey.
Yeah, monkey.
And Science Saru literally means science monkey. And why is this the name of the studio? I am just going to read verbatim because I just think this is fantastic, which is Yuasa and Choi settled on the name, which translates to science monkey, in an attempt to combine both an international technological focus, the science part, with a Japanese traditional animation identity, the Saru part. And in an interview, Choi elaborated further by saying, "We thought of a lot of the possible names for the studio. Science is like logic, business, numbers, plans, technology, and new tools. On the other hand, Saru means monkey in Japanese. As animators, we put in creativity, intuition, art, enjoying moments, and being playful, a kind of monkeying around. We want to keep these personalities in Science Saru. Thus, we wanted to create a balance of science, it being in English, which highlights it being international, and Saru in Japanese, maintaining traditional anime. And for a South Korean woman to be able to confidently say that is just encapsulates exactly what she says. That it doesn't matter what race, what gender, whatever you are. You want to do good work, you want to have work-life balance, you want to care about life. This is Science Saru. This is what we believe in. And it's awesome, really. It's fucking awesome. So, and they really put a lot of thought behind the name. The marriage of science and art. The marriage of international versus traditional, right? Like, and that is also reflective a lot in Yuasa's work. Like, you know, the old and the new, the haves and the have-nots. And the conflict and, more importantly, the resolution between these two gaps, I feel like, is in almost all of Yuasa's works.
There are so many of Yuasa's works that basically encapsulate all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it comes to like color contrasts, character developments, expression, creative sort of like ways of showing emotions too, right? Or even just showing the condition, the human condition. It's hard to look at a Yuasa work and not immediately shout, "That's Yuasa."
Oh yeah,
This is totally Yuasa.
100%.
Right? You just look at it like it's either from character shading, it's either from animation style, it's either from the colors he uses as well. It's all done in a way that as soon as you look at it, boom, it's Masaaki. You know it is. And of course, that it's like, yeah, like Masaaki from Madhouse, Masaaki from Ajiado, Masaaki from Science Saru or Solo. There's going to be differences, but no matter what, you can always look at a Masaaki Yuasa work and pinpoint similarities. Not to say that they're all similar. It's almost like he's like paying homage to himself in the way that he wants to animate something, to showcase something.
And that is why we chose Masaaki Yuasa as the first person of interest that we want to cover for our After Dark, because not only does he mean a lot for Will, but he means a lot for the anime industry in general. And I love a lot of his works. He's not necessarily my favorite, but if you say Yuasa, I will be like, yo, let's go. I don't even need to hear what's it about. Let's just put it on. Let's just go. I will always, and I also really like the guy, or at least what he says and what he believes in, and he seems to be very honest and straightforward and open about his stances, and doesn't give that much of a fuck about what naysayers would say otherwise.
He sounds like a really chill guy to hang out with. You know, there's always going to be ones where it's like, oh, I would totally go and have a drink with that guy, or I would totally have dinner with that person, or I would totally want to, you know, meet this person in real life. It's like one of those things where it's like, you know, like be careful what you wish for, like before you meet your heroes, that kind of thing. I feel like Yuasa isn't going to be like what you see in interviews and what you see behind the camera is the same person as what you would see in real life. Like I would totally want to like go down through like the Fukuoka parks in the middle and like grab like a beer and have and drink with him, and afterwards go get ramen, and then just go back to his studio and like watch some of his works. He just seems like that kind of guy which like you can literally chill out and also at the same time be impressed by his acumen, be impressed by his vision. But because there's a difference between like being like really passionate about something, but then also being a snob. And I don't think he ever goes to being a snob. He just really likes what he does, and he doesn't care if it works or not.
So much so that the Japan's Agency for Cultural Affairs gave him the Cabinet Minister Award for Media Fine Arts in honor of his career achievements. So
he's a national treasure.
He's a national treasure, guys. Like we have been, you know, kind of showering him with compliments. But even the Japanese government was like, "Yeah, dog, you're good." Like, come on. Do you know how much? Do we even want to go about the awards that he has won?
I'll list it out right now.
Oh Jesus. Okay, I'm just take a break.
In terms of acclaim for both Japan as well as globally, projects that he's worked on have been recognized by the Annecy International Animated Film Festivals with 2 wins out of 3 nominations, the Japanese Film Academy Film Press Association with 1 win, the Mainichi Film Awards, 1 nomination, 2 wins, the Japan Media Arts Festival, 4 wins, 2 Excellence Awards, 4 jury selections, the Tokyo Anime Awards, 4 wins, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, 16 nominations with 4 wins, the Ottawa International Animation Festival, 1 win, 1 nomination, Shanghai Film Festival, the Sitges Film Festival, the Fantasia International Film Festival, and the Annie Awards. We've already talked about him being, awarded and recognized by the Cultural Affairs of Japan. That's a fucking stellar CV. Like, you get that CV, you just look at it, it's like, how? Yeah,
He's a god.
I will kiss his hand. Like, I will shake it and never wash my hands again afterwards.
And it is amazing to me that this is who he is now, and in the future, I'm gonna be like ecstatic to see what else he has produced. But did you know that
before that, like, imagine like winning these awards, winning this many awards, being recognized at like the highest level when it comes to cultural arts, like.
You're a national treasure in the story.
But do you think it will ever get to his head? Like, do you think it will ever, like, yeah, look at me, I'm that big shot that is like well recognized.
It would get to my head a little bit,
right? But this guy doesn't seem like he cares all that much. I mean, I'm sure he loves getting the awards, but like it's because the fact that for him it's like I didn't do it myself. I got my team to support me on this.
And when he goes on his interviews and I listen to it and read the subtitles. You can really, like, he had self-confidence issues. He was depressed. He was ill and wanted to give up. And obviously he didn't. He was worried about people not producing his work, which actually happened for the longest time.
We're going to go into that.
We will get into that. So this guy got put through the ringer. I mean, you look at his accolades and awards and acknowledgement now. But back then, he was at one point down in the dumps, literally, and couldn't do anything, and then just in a spiral of depression. But he was managed to pick himself back up. And you would think that his work would reflect his sort of grim, depressive, just unhappy with the world type thing.
It's like whenever you have, like, for example, like music artists and they go through a bad breakup. Well, okay, and they have a breakthrough as a music artist. Their first album is usually about breakups, right? I mean, like, if we talk about like Adele, we talk about like Taylor Swift, like talk about any
Taylor Swift just basically does that all the time
for money.
I mean, I don't know if it's for money, but
sorry, Tay-Tay, but I mean, you got to pick a better man sometime.
No, she won't, because that's all she got. Boom.
These are all the opinions of Jason.
This is not part of the Good Anime Palette podcast opinion. Please do not direct any flame, like.
But Tay-Tay, you gotta make some better music. Anyways, so exactly that though, right? Like, you would think that someone who has been through the ringer and is just like down in the dumps, if they ever got their chance, they would just kind of vent, right? They would want to just showcase, what's wrong with the world and how it's like their own like take on redemption. But no, like, this guy is just, okay, cool, I finally have my break. Let's do this.
And it's even crazier because looking through his catalog and watching almost all of his stuff, and collectively both of us watching almost all of his stuff, it is the most vibrant, upbeat, energetic, happy-go-lucky, like, we should all reach for the stars together kind of thing. Like when we said earlier, Will said, jump, and then you say how high. It's like, that's not Yuasa style. Yuasa style is like, let's jump together. Like, it's reflected in the tone of his works. I mean, that's not to say that they're all like happy-go-lucky.
Oh, of course not. No, we're going to tell you some of them which are like absolutely fucking tragic. But again, you can still see the influence. You can still see the art styles. You can still see the themes, the ways that he tries to portray characters. It steadily improves, but it was always good to begin with. And not to mention as well, like, when it comes to Yuasa works, I'm always down to just watch the opening. Very rare that I do, but like Ping Pong, right? Tatami Galaxy, I watched all those openings. No problem.
I mean, I watched all those
Devilman
openings.
Crybaby, Isaac. Okay, before we even go into like the series analysis, I think
No, we'll go about that after the break.
yeah, but just one little thing. Last year, this is on. I think it was either Crunchyroll or this was Anime Reddit or just somewhere on the internet. People were casting votes for their top anime opening of the year. Number one was the opening for "Keep Your Hands Off of Isaacin." We will go into we'll go into
Easy
how,
breezy, right?
yeah, by Chemico. We'll go into the how and the why afterwards. But if you got time, we're going to go on a quick break right now. But go on YouTube because I think it's on it's on one of the YouTube channels of one of the production companies.
Like Crunchyroll.
Yeah, Crunchyroll probably has it. Just watch the opening. The music is it's so catchy. It's so good. But yeah, we will get back to you in just a few minutes. We're going to go over some of the works, some of the influences they had in terms of how he portrays certain tropes and certain themes, and then our own takes in terms of what we really think about his works. Spoiler: we're going to love most of them. We're gonna love most of them,
but most of them, not all of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, everyone's gonna have one or two that kind of just miss the target. But we'll catch you just after this break.
Peace. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Good Anime Palette Podcast After Dark, number 3, where we talk about Masaaki Yuasa's career. I am your co-host, Jason, and I am joined by my co-host, Will, again, of course.
Yo, my mind is racing right now. We're finally going to talk about the things we love about Masaaki Yuasa.
I think the coffee kicked in, too.
Yeah, well, and also because we're going to be kickstarting, some of the works that he's done. We talked about his biography, we talked about the studios he's worked with.
No, we're not kickstarting anything.
We're mind starting?
Okay, I just don't want to get it mixed up with actually Kickstarter.
Oh, okay. Well, if we did have a Kickstarter, which he did before, I wouldn't mind backing it.
Yeah, oh god, we should have, but I didn't know about it at the time.
No.
So, the first directorial debut for Masaaki Yuasa was in 2004 called Mind Game. Now, it's based on a manga, but I can't find any official English translation, and it seems pretty old. I looked at some images on Google Image, and it just looks insane. And believe it or not, it is extremely indicative of the anime itself. It's an anime film, by the way.
Yeah, this is essentially the making of Yuasa. Yeah, so we actually watched. Well, okay, let's be real. We didn't watch the whole thing for Mind Game. Should we even try to talk about what Mind Game is?
No. Oh no. Okay, this is what Mind Game is. It is about a guy and going through trials and tribulations, kind of a time loop, let's just say. I don't think that's very spoilerish, because you really can't spoil Mind Game, really.
We still don't really know what Mind Game is.
Like I just told you, it's a time loop, but I know what that is. It's about a guy going through trials and tribulations. I know what that is. But no.
What does he do during these time loops? Like, I don't know. I mean, I watched the movie, but I still don't know what's happening half the time.
We watched half of the movie, and then literally I said to you, Will, is Mind Game basically a game? They're playing a game with our minds. And I know that's like a pun or like wordplay.
It could be more real of a description than what Mind Game actually is. Like, there's elements of Inception. There's elements of fucking
Kill Bill, like the Kill Bill animated stuff.
Actually, have you ever watched the movie Enter the Void?
Maybe.
It's about a drug dealer in Japan who gets caught, and then he gets basically he gets caught in the sting operation. He runs off. He's trying to get rid of his drugs, but then he gets shot to death. And then his body, his soul leaves his body, and then he just floats around and sees all the people that are connected to him and what happens in his life. That happens in Mind Game. There's also like a Pinocchio element. There's also like Inception element. It's just a lot
Japanese?
No, I can't remember who produced it,
It's
but
French, I think.
But it's based in Shinjuku, I think.
French. It's French.
Yeah, but the people speak English in the movie.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, English language experimental drama art film. Oh my god, that's a handful.
It's basically I'm pretty sure you also watched the movie. Because if there's anything that we need to say, if there's one word that we can use to describe Yuasa, and it's not the word crazy or surreal or extravagant, it's experimental.
And this anime is experimental as fuck. So it not only has weird camera angles, weird uses of art, background, foreground.
Transitions between like real life to animation.
Yes. And we're not even joking. Like real life actors' faces, actresses' faces.
Like, it uses like 3D capture technology in a way. And then there's like cell shading, and then there's actual like Astro Boy style animation in there. It's a lot to handle. It literally is just like running rings around your brain. Your mind is just lost like as soon as you start watching the first minute.
So Yuasa, when was interviewed about this movie, said one sentence that really encapsulates how I feel about the movie, which is, I wanted Mind Game, basically. I wanted it to look as though we hadn't worked very hard on it, though of course we did. Like, yeah, like, it looks like a mess.
You make an effort to not make an effort. How do you feel? How do you feel about Mind Game? Like, if I was to say this is a Yuasa like work, like, absolutely,
Yes, it is.
This is like the, in a way, it's the pinnacle to Yuasa's style because of how wacky and insane it is. Did we enjoy it?
So, here is how I feel about Mind Game. I think the fact that both of us decided to stop watching Mind Game midway through kind of tells you how we feel about it. You can stream it on Amazon Prime and Crunchyroll, because I don't even know like why they would do that, but
yeah.
But hey, whatever. Yuasa is a very well-known guy now, and this was his first directorial work. I would say though, if you were to watch any of Yuasa's works,
don't let this one be the first.
Mind Game should actually be the last, because
it's too much to handle.
It's not only too much to handle, but I feel like
to the naked eye and yes, the naked mind as well, you just don't know how to digest it. You will be so lost in it that you wonder if this guy is crazy or this guy has a vision that you just cannot comprehend.
I think this is where a role of a producer or like someone close to the director is important.
Yeah, like one of the things that we discussed when we were watching it was like, if someone were to watch this movie, rather than that Yuasa guy, that guy does some crazy shit, right? Instead, you would think, that Yuasa guy, that guy's crazy.
Yeah, it is the difference between saying someone is shit versus saying someone is the shit.
Again, we're not saying he's shit. But
no,
we definitely don't feel as good about Mind Game. It's hard to endorse. It's really hard to endorse, especially if it's going to be the first series or the first property you're going to watch of Yuasa.
Right, because you'll be like, oh, chronologically, let's start from the beginning.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. And I'd just like to sort of harbor like a philosophy of mine, which is I personally believe in freedom and choice and expression. But I don't believe in limitless freedom of choice and expression. I believe in some sort of constraint or limit, because you would think to yourself, well, if I have free reign to do whatever I want, that's great. And that may be true for some people. But for me, when you give me free reign, I go like a million different directions and I end up going nowhere. I don't have because no one is there to say this is not acceptable, this is not good, or not even to myself. I therefore have analysis paralysis and don't know how to proceed onwards.
Right. It's like one of those things where you like, chase your dreams, follow your ambitions, but no matter how far and how high you try to reach for the stars, like you will always have your feet planted on the earth. So there has to be some grounding elements to your creativity, because
there's no grounding element in Mind Game.
Yeah, and that's what happens when like you literally it's like letting a kid go run around in like a toy store with free reign. Like they're not gonna. You ever see those videos of like I think it's like a Christmas or a Thanksgiving thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna open Toys R Us or whatever toy store it is. 1 minute before everyone else gets in, and whatever you grab, it's yours. And immediately, whenever the kid runs in, they're so shocked by like what's in there. It's like such a sensory overload that they literally do not know what to do. That's kind of how I felt watching Mind Game. That you're like not more than just a deer caught in the headlights kind of situation. Like I just sat there trying to encapsulate everything and put it into words that I understood, and I was just still left with gibberish.
So Mind Game was released in 2004, but the commercial success was minimal, if anything.
This could have been the death of Yuasa. This actually almost was the death of Yuasa.
Yeah, because following the release of the film, Yuasa has said that he has struggled to find producers who would support him. And let's be honest, if you were to ask me after watching Mind Game, will I support this person, I would be like, you're out of your goddamn mind. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's not like to say that his work was shit. It's just, how do we translate this to the masses? And it showed, right? Like, box office wise, it did terribly.
I mean, critically, for example, which I think is still crazy to this day, it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, so that's may not necessarily like the greatest barometer, but Mind Game went on to win the Mainichi Film Festival, the Nobura Awards, the Japanese Media Art Festival Grand Prize for Animation, Fantasia International Film Festival Award for Best Film / Director / Screenplay, and Visual Accomplishments, and the Audience Award for Best Animated Film. So clearly some people really like this.
It's just art in a way, right? Like you can go to an art exhibit or a museum and you see something and it's like, oh, this is so-and-so valued at like $100 million.
Oh, you mean like interpretive art, right?
Yeah, and I look at it, I'll be like, how? Why is this worth this much? In the end, like, of course, it's like anything you watch, anything you consume, it's in the eye of the beholder. You give it value the way you feel it should be valued. Not everyone's going to have an objective idea of what art should be perceived as. And therefore, like, there's absolutely no way that both me or Jason or anybody really can fully encapsulate Yuasa's art style unless you've worked with him for days, weeks, months. Clearly someone out there did. And thank fuck they did, because that then gave him a second chance in the industry, and I don't think he's looked back ever since.
And that person who gave him a second chance is Maruyama, co-founder of Madhouse and later of MAPPA. He said that he would give Yuasa the opportunity to kind of basically do whatever he wants. And there he produced, he directed and made Kimono Zume in 2006. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't find any streaming options available, and I think Will Googled it and found a DVD box set for 2,000 Hong Kong dollars.
It's ridiculous, and it's not even translated. It's just pure Japanese.
So what's like $250?
Yeah,
$250 US dollars.
Yeah,
for
like that.
One TV series,
which is crazy. I think it was like 4 DVDs total. So imagine paying like almost like $80-$90 per DVD US. Like that was just mind boggling. But anyways,
yeah.
so Kimono Zume is major directorial debut with Madhouse. We've seen some of the art. It looks crazy. It definitely is Yuasa style, but we can't really talk much about it because we haven't watched it,
and neither could you really access it. So we felt that we made an executive decision to move on from Kimono Zume. Another one that is right after Kimono Zume in 2007 was Genius Party. So it is a bunch of short films. So it's an anthology project. So it's like, you know, like a movie, but then the movie is split into like 4 parts, each directed, a mini movie, directed by someone. We couldn't get our hands on it either, but I think you can rent it on certain places. But we just thought this is technically only a portion where Yuasa contributed rather than the whole movie. So we decided to move on from Genius Party as well. And there's a sequel in 2008 called Genius Party Beyond.
Yeah. So then after Genius Party, he then went back to Madhouse to work on his second property, Kaiba, which unfortunately I didn't have time to watch, but Jason did.
So Kaiba, Yuasa directed and created and wrote it. And this is when he also collaborated with Eun-Young Choi, who directed and did the storyboard for the series, as well as co-write episodes with Yuasa. And it is available on Amazon Prime and Crunchyroll. And I've seen quite a bit of it.
I only watched like the first minute of it.
Yeah, because I was like, you just got to watch the first minute of it.
It looked cool.
It is a very, very unique look. There are backgrounds that are rendered in 3D, but the characters are drawn in 2D. You know, very dynamic hand movement, action scenes.
There's pod racing in the beginning as well.
Kind of, yeah. And the look of the anime doesn't have that typical anime vibe. It's almost...
It's so typical of Yuasa, essentially.
It's like Astro Boy and a Western cartoon had a baby. That is Kaiba. And what is Kaiba? The storyline? Essentially, it's about memories. And it's about the main character, Kaiba, having amnesia, but then being thrust into this world where memories can be implanted in you, can be extracted from you. You can have your body, juxtaposed like in someone else's body or in another new body. It really reminds me of a limited comic book run from 2005 to 2006 called The Surrogates. Now, there is a movie that is based on this comic book starring Bruce Willis. The movie was really terrible. But the comic book is actually really interesting because it talks about how memories and identity really can mess with someone's psyche. Or what is your own memories and what is not. What is, and in Kaiba, all of these memories and being able to transplant yourself to a body, making yourself immortal, basically, because then you transfer into another body, are only available to the rich. And they live up in the clouds. Whereas the poor, everyday citizen lives down in the slums on the bottom. And this is just crazy ambitious. Does it stick the landing? I can't tell you for sure, but it is definitely very interesting. I think it is definitely at least an 8, if not a 9. I can already tell.
That's pretty high praise.
So 4 out of 5 stars at the very least. I think it's really good.
Right, we move on to the next property, which is also the final production that he did under Madhouse. So we've talked about this so many times. I've talked about this so many times. It's freaking Tatami Galaxy. It's, for me, the best anime that I've ever watched, and probably will be for the rest of, however long I decide to watch anime.
So the Tatami Galaxy is based off of a novel written by Tomihiko Morimi, and it follows a nameless student going through a time loop, basically, trying to live the days of his youth.
Yeah, the misadventures of a young man trying to guide himself through life, and he meets all sorts of people. He gets himself into all sorts of situations, and it's up to him in terms of how he wants to move forward with certain storylines, how he wants to build certain connections, how he communicates to the world and the people around him, all while trying to find his own identity. So it's very much one of those kind of self-exploration but psychodramatic kind of shows. There's definitely comedic elements to it. There's a lot of color and a lot of absurdity that happens in the show as well. And think about it this way as well. It comes from a campus novel, so it's just literally just a story. To then be able to translate that into a visual representation on screen, you know that like it took a while for Yuasa to come together with how he envisioned the story, how he envisioned the characters, how he envisioned them to all look, and also how to really focus on certain elements of each story. I think it's just beautiful. It's the perfect meld of great music, great story arcs, great character development, and a real representation of themes when it comes to being able to put emotions on screen, being able to self-explore and grow as the story develops. And then it's not always going to be like a happy ending kind of thing. Like no, like the main character really does have to graft and get their way through to the end. There were so many twists and turns in the show that like I can't help but give it like a 2 thumbs up, 10 out of 10 endorsement.
And also, Tatami Galaxy is very well known for its rapid-fire editing and fast-paced dialogue, which I think turns off a lot of people right away.
Oh, right from the beginning, the first
thing
frame.
when he tries to explain the location is just crazy fast.
You know how like people whenever like they talk about like how fast they type, it's like, oh, I can type like 80 words per minute, 100 words per minute. No, this is like 500 words per minute spoken. It's crazy like how rapid the opening montage is, but it sets the bar, it sets the tone for the rest of the series,
and I think you get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like this is around a period when I was watching a lot of battle and fighting shonens, a lot of like adventure kind of shows where it's like you talk about journeying through across the land and trying to be the best person that you are, whether you're a ninja or a pirate or a soul eater or a fucking like, Shinigami, whatever. So then when I come across Tatami Galaxy on Netflix, I was like, this is interesting. Oh, it's got a pretty good like score on my anime list. Why don't I check it out? Immediately fell in love with it. Like the tones, the colors, the way that the characters are I mean, lack of a better word, characterized. I felt that it was just perfect. The way that he presents each story and how the characters start growing as they interact with the world around them. It's a beautiful mix of absurdity and expressionism, but also formula from beginning to end. Being able to get this main character who is kind of a lost and directionalist young man to being able to really find out what makes him happy, what he wants to be, and then seeking that conclusion.
So there is several things I would like to say about Tatami Galaxy, but Will encapsulated a lot of my thoughts. I still think it is of exceptional anime. I wouldn't say 10 out of 10, but easy 9.5 out of 10. Not my favorite, but heavily endorsed as well. The other thing that I would say is the theme of trying to find oneself and purpose and direction in life, being aimless at first, then finding your purpose, is a constant theme throughout all of Yuasa's work. Because back in Kaiba needs to find out who he is and what he wants to do. In Tatami Galaxy, Watashi, which means yourself, so it's an unnamed protagonist, wants to get the most out of his college last year. So then he tries a bunch of different things and it loops around. We will stress time and time and again the theme of trying to find oneself.
Yeah. One thing I remember Yuasa talked about in one of the interviews when he was describing how he wants to portray story in his works is that more often than not, he wants to put you, the viewer, into the character's shoes. He wants you to sort of live the experiences of them and then using your own subjectivity, your own perceptions, then derive your own emotion from it, your own like reasons for appreciating certain things, not appreciating certain things. But in the end, you still come to a point where you're just looking at the works like, yeah, well, okay, this does actually speak volumes to me. Like if we talk about Mind Game, even Mind Game has self-identity as well in there too, amongst many different crazy batshit elements that are in the movie Mind Game.
Right. So another thing, the final thing I would say about the Tatami Galaxy is of its release. Up till now, like Kimonozume and Kaiba, was only released on satellite television network called Wow Wow. But Tatami Galaxy was broadcast on national television via Fuji TV. And Fuji TV will eventually be this constant collaborator with Yuasa, even with Science Saru. The other thing is that the Tatami Galaxy was also released for the first time for streaming release in North America. So the series helped put him on the map outside of Japan. And of course, a lot of people think that it's one of the best anime series of the decade, or in Will's case, of all time. It has won a bunch of awards that I won't need to name, because if you really want to find out, you can Google it. But
or you can also just go on Netflix and Funimation.
Yeah,
it's still there.
It's still there. It's good. You should watch it.
Yeah, I think we need to then move on to the other stuff, because I could just keep talking about fucking Tatami Galaxy. So
the next thing that I want to talk about in terms of Yuasa's work is actually not Japanese.
this is actually very left field, but it's also like indicative of the kind of career trajectory that Yuasa has had. I'm sure you've probably seen a couple clips of it on Facebook, maybe on TV. We're talking about Adventure Time.
So when Science Saru was first founded in 2013, one of their goals was to not only do their own Japanese anime series, but also to do other subcontracting series as well. Like work, basically. And one of them is Adventure Time in 2014, with an episode called Food Chain, which is, I think, the 7th episode of Season 6. And I couldn't watch all of it from beginning to end, but you could YouTube clips of the episode that are on Cartoon Network or on the Adventure Time official channel. So it's not like you could see it from beginning to end, but I saw like 12, 15 minutes of a 20-something minute episode. So that's pretty much all you need. And I was able to see all of it fully legal, freely available.
Have you ever watched much Adventure Time?
I love Adventure Time.
It's great. A lot of times when you're watching it, it's very much it's almost like following the ethos of Yuasa, in that it's surreal, it's experimental, it's wacky, it's colorful.
Yuasa would have watched this as a kid.
Yeah, I'm sure Yuasa, his kids, if they're not watching his stuff, they're watching Adventure Time. Like it's almost like the two, like if he was an American, if he was like working in the animation industry in America or in North America, he'd be a part of it.
So Food Chain is an episode where they talk about the food chain, and sort of like, a grass, plant flowers grow from the soils, worms eat the leaves of the flower, then birds eat the worm, and then a bigger bird eats the bird, and then the bird dies and then turns into bacteria, which then goes into the earth, and then the earth. And actually, that's the cycle that they use in the television series. It's super trippy, psychedelic. There's a heavy use of music, which is really awesome music, to the point where I think under the Google search, it is under Adventure Time Food Chain is where to find song or something like that.
It being like the way you described it, it very much kind of not only is like indicative of Adventure Time style, but also Science Saru style.
Extremely.
It's a match that just had to be made, right? Yeah, they didn't do like any more episodes afterwards, but like it left its mark.
I think a lot of people would consider, in terms of guest directors, like this is one of the highest rated guest directions for the series. So, I mean, it's won a bunch of awards. Again, you're going to hear us say, and then it won a bunch of awards for almost every piece of work, because it really did earn awards for every piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, like being able to be a Japanese studio but win an award for on an American TV series, that's pretty stellar. But I think it's time to go back to Japan, right, Jason?
It's time to play the sport of ping pong.
The animation. So this is a really, really wonderful piece of art again, produced in 2014. Yeah,
it's
so good.
Based off of a sports manga about two high school students who
you watched the live action as well.
Yes,
right?
And the live action was like ages ago, like 2002 or something, on VCD. Do you remember that stuff?
Yep,
crazy.
Of course I do.
I remember like giving it to one of my friends on VCD. Like, come on. I don't think a lot of Westerners would even know what VCD is. That's video CD, so before DVDs were invented.
What's the CD stand for?
compact disc.
There you go.
Hey,
What's a disc?
it's a floppy disk.
Dude, none of our fucking laptops have disk drives anymore. So.
Or CD drives or anything,
Yeah.
really. They just have USB and headphone jack.
USB-C as well,
yeah.
not USB-A. But yeah, so this is...
ping pong.
Yeah, this is... Oh, man. Like,
Ping pong
let's
is
get into this.
Okay. I know, Will, you like Tatami Galaxy the most out of all his works. Or arguably the most influential on your like personal top 10. Of all the Yuasa stuff, Ping Pong the animation is not only a 10 out of 10, but as of right now is the most impactful Yuasa work that I have watched.
It's my second favorite.
There is not only crazy animation that is, you could even see it in Mind Game, that you could even see it in clips of Kimonozume, that it's just like that kind of rough, everything doesn't look really right, but you can clearly tell what it is. The music is so upbeat, so good, and the story is fantastic. There is a monologue towards the end of the series that is just... I teared up because it was just that impactful and that hype.
When we talk about all these series, all these works that Yuasa's done, talking about finding oneself, self-identity, and expression, one common thing that we want to mention is a lot of times the main characters go through very introspective moments where they kind of go deep down and have their own thoughts. When it comes to Ping Pong, it's probably the most expressive version of introspectivity.
But even so, like Smile, right? One of the two main protagonists, his struggle to sort of find who he is. And what was the other guy's name?
I don't remember.
Shit.
You talking about the Chinese guy?
No, not that's Wen.
Oh.
The other ping pong player in the what was his
I know who you're talking about though.
Shit. After we said like this is our favorite, one of our favorite
but
films.
It's been a while. I mean, like it was almost a year since we last watched it.
Oh, God damn it. I guess okay, basically Ping Pong is fantastic. And if there is any show that you watch, I highly recommend Ping Pong, the animation.
How many awards did it win?
A shit ton.
A shit ton.
I mean, do you want to name off if you really want to?
Nah, we already did it earlier. But funny enough, whilst Science Saru, his company, did work on the animation for Ping Pong.
Peko. Peko.
Ah, that's him. Okay. So this was a joint collaboration, not just with Science Saru, but also another studio called Tatsunoko Productions. So I think this was like, again, one of those things where now, hey, we know who you are. We know the studio you work with. We have no problem collaborating with you. So you had Science Saru, who was going over like the anime production, whereas you had the main studio, which was Tatsunoko Productions, acting as the primary studio.
And Yuasa not only wrote it, but also storyboarded and directed Ping Pong the animation, of course.
So where can you watch it?
You can watch it on Funimation.
Moving forward again. Now, similar in the way that Science Saru or Masaaki Yuasa works on individual episodes of other productions, of other series. In the same year, you also helped to direct a TV show called Space Dandy, produced by Bones Studios. So the episode itself is called "Slow and Steady Wins the Race, Baby," and it also received critical acclaim. We can't really talk much about it because we've only watched like one or two episodes of Space Dandy, and like this is like episode 16 of the whole series as well. So it's really not our place to talk much about it. I kind of like Space Dandy.
I think Space Dandy is all right. But again, like I don't think I have watched enough to give a definitive opinion other than to say it is definitely not bad. It's good.
It's one of those things where it's like, look, if you like Shinichiro Watanabe, like if you watch Cowboy Bebop or if you watch Samurai Champloo, you probably would be thinking, okay, well, he also made Space Dandy. You should totally check it out. And you should. Unfortunately, we just never had enough time to actually finish off the whole series, so we can't really give much of a conclusive feedback on the series itself, nor can we even talk about the actual episode that Yuasa worked on. So we're just going to move ahead.
So after directing a bunch of TV series with Madhouse, and then guest directing on Space Dandy in 2014, Madhouse, as you might have listened to in our previous numbered episode, kind of had some troubles. So in that sense, Yuasa then went to find his own animation studio, Science Saru, and then in 2017 made essentially their first Science Saru's first feature film called Lu Over the Wall. You can watch it on let's see, hold on a sec here. You can watch it on Netflix, basically. That's where I watched it. And it is pretty good. The Yuasa directed and co-wrote Lu Over the Wall, and it was his first feature film with an original story. So that's pretty interesting. Lu Over the Wall is essentially about merfolk, so like mermaids and mermans, with a fishing village, and sort of their hatred or they're scared of one another, so then they kind of go their separate ways. The fishermen's never fish in the area where the merfolk live, and the merfolk never come. There's like to the shore. There's rumors of that merfolk like eating humans and stuff like that. But your main character, who is a high school guy, kind of aimless. I mean, as if like that is not another constant reminder of Yuasa's themes. Trying to find himself, likes music and plays music. And music is actually very scary because music in this world attracts the merfolk. Because I guess it's like sirens, like music and stuff like that. In fact, one of the cafes is called Siren in Ride Your Wave, which is just like, it's just water. Okay, anyways, it's about a relationship between Lu, who is a mermaid, and a guy who I can't remember his name, nor does it really matter, and their relationship with one another and the use of music. If I had to distill what it is in one sentence, think of Ponyo and E.T. and like Footloose or like a musical, and combine them all into one and make it very kid-friendly, you get Lu Over the Wall. The story is extremely, almost stupidly simplistic. But the color palette is awesome, as we said time and time and again. The energy is really awesome. There is a very hopeful message towards the end, albeit a little bit like confusing at first. But then when you think about it some more, it's actually very hopeful and very nice. And it's pretty good. I don't think it did very well, though, because I checked out some box office records, and the worldwide box office sales of Lu Over the Wall is $176,808 US.
Do you remember? I told you this before as well. Do you remember the box office it's set in the U.S.?
No.
$5,600. That's like
one movie theater.
That's like 4 months rent.
Oh god. I will say though that the movie has a very weird dramatic shift in tone in the second third. The dark second act, and then there's the resolution. The dark second act comes out of nowhere. And it's very weird. But that being said, Lu is super cute as the mermaid.
Recommend?
The dance sequence is very Looney Tunes-esque. I would definitely recommend it. I think if you want to get... If I was a parent and want to get my kids to watch something, Lu Over the Wall is definitely worth watching. Because you can get something out of it as well as an adult, but the kids would love it. They definitely would like it a lot.
After Lu Over the Wall, we will have essentially a continuation of the Atomic Galaxy universe with The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which was released in 2017. So this was
and it's based off of the novel by
Morimi,
by the same author. So
he actually had the opportunity, I'm talking about Yuasa, to actually start working on this, but because of contractual agreements and just not having the time to dedicate towards it, he just never got around to doing it. So then when in the middle of his productions for Lu Over the Wall, he was offered the opportunity to pick it up and actually adapt this comedy romance. And I'm so glad he did, because if you like, and I like, Tatami Galaxy, you will also really like the night is short, walk on girl. So this was essentially like kind of like a reunion party for Masaaki because a lot of the creative departments that worked on Atomic Galaxy returned for Night is Short, and it makes sense because it's set in the same universe in the sense that it's around Kyoto University or a Kyoto University, and some of the characters are actually the same. So you'll still have like a certain sage, you might have a certain like male character, a certain female character that you could pick up and drop into each other property, and not much would change. But the story itself is oof, it's really cute. It's really heartwarming. Again, I think it comes down to the fact that because I'm such a big Atomic Galaxy fan that it just was easy for me to endorse The Night is Short, Walk On Girl.
I think I watched half of the film before I was really tired that one time. It is very good. It is the same style that Yuasa is well known for, the color, the energy, and it's just about literally this girl and her night out. One long night, to be precise.
Now, this is a world where it's kind of like everyone is either an alcoholic or they're not, and the main character is just she can drink water like she drink alcohol like water.
I have to say though,
fine.
I think that if I could live in that world and just have like a night out, it would be like the best night ever. Everyone's friendly, everyone is happy, everyone is drinking.
You can dance like an idiot and no one cares. You can walk around with no pants on and everyone's like, hey, put your pants back on. Hey, what you doing there, buddy? Hey, you want to look at this erotic art over here? Come over here, buddy. Have a drink with me. Why did my wife leave me? Oh no, my wife is back now. Oh, hooray. It's just like so many things happen in one of the lines in the movie is encapsulated. It's like what was a long night felt like a year, and it felt like everyone experienced so many different things. I want to see what this person experienced, and then the other person would be like, oh, I wonder how this person experienced that night. It's again like talking about perception, talking about identity, talking about how one lives in a similar environment but has different experiences. So a lot of tropes and themes are very similar across Atomic Galaxy and Night is Short. But what I would say is like in terms of like the story, Atomic Galaxy is king for me. Night is Short is the queen. It is very much on the same pedestal. I just have to give it to the
OG.
I have to give the crown to the OG. That's it.
You can watch Night is Short, Walk On Girl on Amazon Prime.
Such a good time. It is an hour and 45 minutes. A bit on the long side, but well worth your time.
So, at this point, we have talked about a bunch of very uplifting, a bunch of very colorful,
Dude, Jason,
a bunch of very
the lights just went out.
A bunch of very. I'm trying to talk so.
Things are getting a little bit.
Oh
darker
my god!
here.
What is that? Who's that thing? What's that shadow?
Ooh, yo, I see those people taking a bunch of drugs. Wait a minute.
Wait, what? Are they having sex? Jesus Christ! In front of us?
Wait, that's not a woman. That's not a man. That's a. How many teeth does that thing have? Oh my god.
Oh my god, he's eating that person. Wait. Are we just watching Devilman Crybaby?
Hell yeah, we are. This is another one of the fucking mindfuck TV shows that your boy Masaaki Yuasa dropped on Netflix.
In 2018.
Now, you're not going to find it anywhere else because it's Netflix exclusive, but you better make sure you have a Netflix subscription because if you have one, this is for me, it's a must watch.
So remember when I said that Ping Pong, the animation, is probably my favorite? I have to say, though, Devilman Crybaby is probably the most important piece of work that Yuasa has done. Mainly because, for several reasons. The first of which, it is on Netflix, a platform that a lot of the world has access to. He has gotten a lot of attention due to Devilman Crybaby. In fact, I think I read somewhere that because of his popularity with Devilman Crybaby, a bunch of licensors basically bought the license for his previous works. That's why you can even have access to Atomic Galaxy or
like
all of
Mind Game.
Or Mind Game, right? This is the fact that you can watch Mind Game on Crunchyroll is because, in my opinion, of the fame that comes with Devilman Crybaby. It is based off of a manga in the 1970s.
1970s, yeah.
But it's not anything really to do with the manga, really, right?
Well, no, because this is originally from Devilman, which was written by Go Nagai, who's also done Cutie Honey and also Mazinger Z. Mazinger Z. The way that the manga was written was that is kind of almost open interpretation. Right, you still have the central themes of heaven and hell. You still had the central themes of demons and monsters, but a lot of times it had a anime adaptation, but from the 80s. There's a lot of people who take the story and try to recreate their own versions of it. It was only when it came to Yuasa that like shit hit the fan. I think in one of the episodes, actual shit hit the fan.
So it is gory and violent.
Oh, violent.
And sexual and illicit drugs. It is just depravity. But then at the same time, it looks really gorgeous. I don't know how to feel about this. And I think that's the point, right? Like, it almost is comical, some of the, and mind-bending and psychedelic, some of the very violent scenes. Now, you would watch it, and when you think about it, you'd be like, wow, that is actually really, really messed up. But the way that they portray it on screen, it actually looks artistic in a weird way. And the camera angles and shot compositions are actually done very well.
And the characters themselves are very well written as well.
And there are memes everywhere, like that running meme.
Oh, dude, people, that's the one thing. I don't understand like, how they start, the way that they run. The way that their gait and the way that they move their arms, yeah, it was definitely meme worthy.
Yo, I was tilted so hard.
You
As a person that like does biomechanics and prosthetics and biomedical engineering, I was just like, you can't do that. You can't do that. There is a perfectly able-bodied woman running behind you that looks fine, but you're running like that. Makes no sense to me.
Yep.
But it's pretty funny.
I love the show. I think like
there's a rap scene that is pretty crazy.
I think, like, if I had to sort of rank the top 3 Yuasa works that I've watched, I'm not putting Night Your Short in there because it's essentially part of the Tatami Galaxy universe. I think I would put number 1 as Tatami Galaxy, followed by Ping Pong, with Devilman Crybaby as a strong third, just because of how high octane and ridiculous and violent it is. But the darker tones and themes of the story is also just like, it's gut wrenching. Like, you definitely watch it and you just wonder, like, is this just eternal damnation? Is there any salvation for any of these characters? And when you do start getting those glimmers of hope, it gets snatched away from you, and then you get to see another glimmer of hope. It's just you just get put through the ringer with your emotions.
I've never seen a color white in Devilman Crybaby and go, oh, that person is a good person.
Yeah. It's so hard to tell.
Because you think, like, people who wear white are, like, angels, right? Angelic, like, holy people. But in Devilman Crybaby, they're like, nah, son. Usually the white is there so that it can get tainted with red later on, or they're just bad people.
Nothing looks brighter on white than red.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Apparently 90% of the viewers of Devilman Crybaby came from outside of Japan.
I watched it in Hong Kong. I know loads of friends who watched it in the U.S.
That was a statistic that was put out there. And honestly, I believe it. Because I don't really feel like this is a very Japanese-oriented series. Do you think so? Obviously, They speak Japanese. It's animated by and directed by a studio that is primarily based in Japan. But this is not... I mean, I'm telling you that a lot of Japanese people probably like it, but it's almost not for them in a weird way.
I guess in a similar way, it's kind of like how we talked about, like, the proliferation of anime and how, like,
exactly,
certain, like, big hits, right? Like the Narutos and the Bleaches. I'm sure they were popular in Japan, but they're way more popular elsewhere, right? In the same way, Devilman, I think it's just because of the fact that it's the art style, right? It's the themes, it's the sexually charged nature of the story, and the fact that it's also not, like, broadcast on national TV. It's, on Netflix.
And it is R-rated as fuck.
Oh, it's super R-rated.
And no, I mean, like, I don't know if I want to spoil this, but there is, like, a sequence of events where sex, violence, decapitation,
body horror
was all in a span of several seconds. And I was just like,
And you'd be damned if you didn't think that there were drugs involved. No, there were definitely drugs involved in the scene as well. It's like it's just one of those like a lot of taboo things in Japan all in one scene, which you can probably understand why it didn't maybe kick off in Japan as much as the rest of the world. But
guess what? Yuasa ain't gonna give no fucks because
No.
it's awesome.
it's that scene alone was fucking insane.
So that was 2018.
Now let's calm down a bit and maybe catch a wave, right?
In
Let's
2019,
hit the beach and all that shit,
Yuasa directed his next feature film, the romance called Ride Your Wave. It's an original story. And so this film, I'll start with how much it earned. Because if Lu Over the Wall earned less than 200,000 US dollars, this one earned close to 4 million US dollars, which is insane to me. That is immediately a success. Also, China contributed 1.9 million of that 4 million, and then Japan contributed 1.6 million of that 4 million. So China even outpaced Japan. Now, okay, granted, China is huge.
But China also loves anime too.
But China also loves anime too. I mean, we are like into anime as well. We're Chinese people.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like about anime?
What's not there? Yeah, exactly. Anime is good.
Yeah. So generally, you said 4 million, right? Just under half of it was contributed by China.
Exactly.
If China like you, you're gonna make some money.
So Ride Your Wave is about a surfer girl and her relationship with a guy who is a firefighter. And then
So water is essentially like in the midst of their beings, right?
Yes. I mean, even more ways than one, but I can't spoil that because let's just say water plays an extremely, extremely important role, not on top of what I've already said about it. And obviously, this is one of the first major works that features a woman prominently. In fact, like she is the main character. And this woman is very aimless, doesn't know what to do, and doesn't know what she wants in her life. So then she decides to move back to the beach town that she grew up in. And she also likes to surf. So she lives next to the beach. And it's very lovey-dovey. And then very feel-good. There's a bit of drama, a bit of tragedy, but, you can't have romance without some tragedy or drama. I have to say, though, the same thing can be said about all the other Yuasa films that he has done recently. So, vibrant color. Music is awesome, even though it doesn't play that prominent of a role compared to Lu Over the Wall.
It's more subtle, right?
More subtle. And the smoothest pickup line said by a character I have ever seen.
Watch the movie and find out yourself.
There's only one pickup line, but that pickup line, I even told you about it, right? It was like
Smooth as fuck.
Smooth as fuck. So
it's also interesting to see that, like, with all the works that he's done, like, he finally has like a female main character. I mean, I know that when we talk about the Atomic Galaxy, Night is Short, that female characters play a very prominent role in his works. There's actually another one later on that like female characters play the most important roles in his shows. Like, and it's something that like we've talked about outside of like Yuasa works and just works in general. That more often than not, like female characters don't necessarily get the best treatment.
That applies to live action as well.
That too.
And real life as well.
Yeah.
But
I wonder why.
Let's not get into
Time
that.
to change that shit.
It is.
Because, look, like, some of the female characters in Yuasa are probably the most important characters. Do you know who the most important character there is ever? It's fucking In-young Choi. Without In-young, there is no Science Saru either, right? So, like, I think, like,
honestly,
Yuasa knows.
I know that Yuasa and Choi are BFFs, but I just know in my bones that what it is Yuasa is going to be like, yo, I want to play over there. That looks fun. And then Choi is like, oh, there are spikes there. Huh. Hey, Yuasa, why don't you come over here and play on the monkey bars. Oh, the monkey bars? Awesome. Hey, we used to play on monkey bars all the time. Let's call our studio Science Saru. That's basically what Choi is. Not saying that all she does is to avert or subdue Yuasa, but she honestly understands who he is, his vision, his process, to the point where Will just mentioned before, Yuasa gave the keys to Choi. It's like, yo, I'm still going to collaborate with you. This studio is still my baby, but you're the boss now. Awesome. Call me whenever.
Yeah, I think one of the discussions as well was that whilst, like, again, this is in their words, whilst Yuasa is more like the brains when it comes to directing, when it comes to production, In-young's the one.
I mean, that is the marriage of practicality versus
all the
creativity.
Stuff that we've been talking about since like Atomic Galaxy, she's the one who's produced all of them, whereas Masaaki is the one who's directed them.
And he also Un-young Choi did the storyboards and directing, so she not only knows the creative process, she also knows how Yuasa works, her style, his style, and everything. So they're BFF, they're partner in crime, essentially. And
they're going to be godparents of each other's kids.
Yes. So Ride Your Wave, going back to the movie, is really good, but it... How do I say this?
It doesn't stand out amongst the rest of his catalog, right?
Not only does it not stand out, it feels very what I would consider a gateway anime, which is if you were to watch Yuasa stuff and you have never seen any of his stuff, Ride Your Wave and probably Lu Over the Wall would be the two safest, quote-unquote, safest choice. Does it really capture Yuasa's style completely, like Devilman Crybaby or Mind Game or Ping Pong or Tatami Galaxy? No. But if you watch Ride Your Wave and you notice some creative liberties or some uses that are kind of like, that's kind of weird. I kind of like that weird quirkiness. Then, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to go down the rabbit hole that is the works of Masaaki Yuasa. So, at the end of the day, color palette's great, energy is great, hopeful message, romance is lovey-dovey and cute, smooth as fuck pickup line. 7 to 7.5 out of 10 for this film. And this is one of the easier ways to get an introduction to Yuasa's work.
Yeah. So you remember how we talked earlier about like when it comes to manga creation, we did an episode 9 on like the world of anime creation and talking about certain anime that reflect the anime studio, the anime industry, right? Like for instance, like Shirobako is a representation of what the anime industry is like. I feel like Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken is a representation of what working at Science Saru is like.
Yeah, but animation, it starts when you are a kid. Creativity blooms, and then in Japan, high school is like the best years of your life, apparently. Kind of.
Yeah, and you have to find the troupe of, a creative bonkers little midget along with a up and rising VA who's got a lot of money, and also an extremely freakishly tall but very money savvy girl, and you have the makings of the best anime studio you'll find in your rural town of Japan.
So Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken is based off of a manga, and Yuasa directed, I don't know what you call it, comedy. It's a comedy, right?
It's absolutely a comedy.
Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken in 2020, the year 2020. You can watch it on Crunchyroll. We watched it on Netflix. It's really good. It's about a trio of high school girls who want to make animation, and they do it and succeed.
Yeah. So before, when we talked about how Shirobako is like the nitty-gritty, the number crunching, and the actual production elements of the anime industry, Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken is the creative process. Being able to sit down with a storyboard or an empty slate, or getting on your computer, or turning on, a recording project and just making something, letting your ideas flow, going out into the field and researching. Like they literally do all of that in the 12 episodes of Aizuken.
There's like a moment where they have to capture a bell sound for their animation, and the lengths that they go to capture the correct bell sound, or this character couldn't move like this because of the way it's designed, so it should move like this, and therefore its sound effect should be this. Is just the attention to detail is just exquisite.
And you know how we talk about like how the animation, the art, the works, just in general, the works of Masaaki Yuasa is like very wacky and experimental. Like, you actually get to see that process in Isekai, because the characters start talking about how they envision certain scenes of an anime coming to life, and they actually then recreate that specific scene in the anime itself. It's very meta. But it's also really cool because, like, you would imagine that working with Yuasa is essentially what Isaacin looks like. You know, like I think we talked about how animators, how the staff of Science Saru or any collaborators kind of have like creative freedom or like the liberty to do what they feel is right for the show. Like that's pretty much how they went about working on Isaacin. You know, talking about like their own experiences when it comes to creating anime, and it all went into the story.
So this also, Hands of Isaacin, again, won a bunch of awards. But I would like to highlight that it won the Best Director of the Year for the second time for Yuasa, and this is the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. So say what you will about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, but Devilman Crybaby, he won for Anime of the Year and also Best Director. Hands of Isaacin, he won Director of the Year and Best Animation. So, needless to say that the point that I'm trying to make is international recognition has been firmly established by these two properties. Because at least one of the biggest streaming platforms in the world for anime acknowledges that this shit is awesome.
Not to mention the opening for Keep Your Hands on Isaacin is one of my personal favorites. It's really damn good.
You want to dance, right?
Of course.
That's the other thing. Lu Over the Wall, you want to dance.
Okay.
Ride Your Wave, you kind of want to dance too. So it's all like just music and dancing and stuff.
Yeah. It's very different from Devilman Crybaby because instead of dancing, you want to run.
Yeah.
Maybe with proper form, but you just want to run.
But do you want to run away from disaster, Will?
I don't want to. I actually don't want to talk about this one, but I guess we have to.
Then I'll talk about it. Japan Sinks 2020.
More like Japan Stinks. Oh, this was terrible.
So Science Saru produced the Netflix series Japan Sinks 2020 based on a disaster novel, and then it is about an earthquake, right? Is it earthquake, right?
An earthquake that leads into a tsunami
that decimates Japan.
Yep.
And it talks about people trying to recover from the natural disaster. There is apparently a theatrical version called Japan Sinks 2020 theatrical version. Duh. It has won a bunch of awards. It's also made by Science Saru. Will hates it. You can watch it on Netflix. I think it was promising, and then it just gets stupid. But hey, apparently it won a bunch of awards and people like it.
Critically, again, it did well. But Mal ratings, no. My ratings, absolutely no.
But one thing that I will say, though, which is kind of interesting, is the inclusion of multicultural and multi-language within Japan Sinks. Because even within the first episode, you get people that speak in English, albeit not good English, but at least the attempt was made.
You have interracial families.
And in some ways, condemnation of the Japanese nationalistic views, which is like a ballsy thing to do.
But if there was anybody who was going to do it, I felt like it was going to be Masaaki Yuasa.
So
but then again, he also wasn't the one who wrote the story either.
So he received some criticism for his condemnation of Japanese nationalism, but at the same time received positive attention for multiculturalism and inclusiveness. Because, for better or for worse, in natural disaster, everyone is equal, right? There's interracial families, there is white families, there's Japanese families. They're all experiencing tragedy.
Yeah, it always... And they're all trying to revive somehow, right? Whether it's revive their family, revive their lost ones, revive their nation. It's, again, another one of those exploration of self kind of stories, but with other people who are experiencing the same tragedy as you.
I will never look at an elderly person on an electric wheelchair with a bow and arrow the same way ever again.
Ticket.
But rappers are back in here.
Yeah. There's also a YouTuber I forgot, I think. Oh, man. How much did you watch? I watched only 2 episodes, and I couldn't take it anymore.
I'll be honest, I watched it. I don't remember much of it. I remember the first episode being like, the first like 5-10 minutes is just, gorgeous, gorgeous, whatchamacallit, like a gorgeous sky, weather's great. Everyone is about their business, all happy. You get like the university track team, running around. You get like dogs, barking in the park, and like little baby girls like holding hands with the mom. And I'm just looking at this and knowing Yuasa and just go like, you're just gonna fuck shit up in like God knows how long. And guess what? It does. And it's just like, Yuasa, come on, man.
See, for me, like the reason why I didn't really vibe with it as much, there were a lot of reasons, but one major factor is the fact that there were a lot of similarities to this other anime called Tokyo Magnitude 8.0, which I also didn't like. So it was like, if I didn't like that one, there's a lot of similarities with this one. I don't know if I'm gonna suddenly change my mind and say I like this one more. No, I just like both of them just as much.
I think the first episode was pretty good, to be honest.
But then that's as good as it's gonna be. It just sucks afterwards. I mean, okay, fine. I know enough people who like the show. Don't count me in that bunch.
I mean, it got nominations and it won an award.
Yeah, but so what? Whatever.
But it actually won the least amount of awards.
Yeah, as it should have. Anyways,
but hey,
if you like it, it's still on Netflix. So go ahead and watch it.
It's a Netflix exclusive. But Will, what happens when you try to revive, and by revive I mean recapture the accomplishments of a 14th century poet and mix it with modern dance and music?
You basically get one of the most ambitious projects that Yuasa is aiming to work on, which is minwbu. Projected to come out sometime in 2021, but we actually haven't got any full confirmation of when it's coming out.
So expect 2022 is basically how it is.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've seen like some like animation snippets because Yuasa did an interview about minwbu, but like there's barely anything on it right now. It's very much like under wraps.
So it centers on a blind musician and a Noah actor afflicted by a terrible curse. And Yuasa's goal with the film is to portray the historical equivalents with modern-day pop stars. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, Yuasa, I believe you when you say that. But, like, Christ almighty, how is this going to work?
He's going to all of a sudden have, like, a song and dance routine from, like, AKB48. Or some, like, maybe the seiyu that does the voice acting.
It says the film is a musical that incorporates both modern song and dance. And it's about a 14th century poet. So, like, what? It's 14th century, then all of a sudden a rapper shows up out of nowhere. And then a K-pop dance routine starts happening. And then the mob flash. What is this?
It's Shakespeare meets Tupac. With some BTS thrown in there.
We don't know what to expect other than to say...
There's nothing. There's nothing that we can really run off of.
There is a poster, but the poster is basically like a logo. That's it.
Yeah. So, and even then, like when talking about like his work, it's just like him trying to talk about what he aims to achieve, not what he's already done with it. So, look, your guess is as good as ours. We have no idea what to expect, but
you bet your fucking ass that Will and I will be there in line to watch this film.
Knowing it's Yuasa, like, what else would you expect?
All right,
that pretty much lists most, if not all, the major works that are either accessible or that like we want to highlight. And it's a lot.
Wow, we went over actually looking at the time.
Yeah, but I think we're doing fine anyway. Anyways, there's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff that he's worked on. Very clear that there are certain shows, certain series, maybe even movies that are favorites of mine, favorite of Jason's, or even just favorites of the both of us. Long story short, Yuasa is
a madman,
a creative visionary that we do not deserve, really. But thank God that he's a selfless man.
All right, I'm pretty sure I know what your answers are, but favorite Yuasa work and one that you would recommend to newcomers right away?
Tatami Galaxy.
For both?
Tatami Galaxy for both.
Ooh.
But if you want something that's a little more on like the crazy side, Devilman Crybaby.
Jesus, you're putting everyone on the deep end, huh?
Yes. I think, look, I can easily recommend Ping Pong as well, because I know you will, and I would too. But what I like about Yuasa's works is that it's very extreme.
I would say Ping Pong, the animation, is my favorite Yuasa work, but I would recommend you watch Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin.
Oh, yeah.
I would like
That's a good one,
I
too.
would like you to watch a bunch of their Yuasa's movies as well, but I think Your Hands Off Isaacin is mainstream enough, but also captures Yuasa's style very well.
It's probably the most lighthearted one as well. It's very lighthearted.
And it's cool.
It's
just
cute. It's
very
nice. Cute. And you're never going to get that jingle from the fucking opening out of your head for months after watching it. It's such a good opening.
All right.
Oh, and also, I guess if you have your hands on Night of Short, watch it too. But your enjoyment of the movie would be amplified if you already watched Tatami Galaxy.
All right. That is the end of our After Dark episode. Will, you ready for me to do the...
Clean this shit up, man.
Okay, so you could always reach us through our email at gapalette@gmail.com. That's gapalette@gmail.com. You could reach us through Twitter at palettegood, capital P, capital G, all one word, or through our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/palettegood, capital P, capital G, all one word. You could visit our website, www.goodanimepalette.com, all one word, all lowercase. You can even join us on Discord. The Discord invite is in the show description, or our Mal Club, which the invite is also in the show description. Music credits. Our intro is Cali by Wataboi. Hey!
Welcome back, Cali.
Our break music is Min 2019 by minwbu. Our outro music is What You Thinking, the instrumental version by Wataboi. You could find all of our music, that is the intro, break, and outro music, at pixabay.com. Will.
I love Yuasa. I don't think I'm ever going to get over his stuff. And I also love Young Choi, so I can't wait to see more Science Saru work. I can't wait to see more Yuasa work. So, Inuo, whenever you come out, I'm ready for you. I'm also ready to see what projects that Young decides to produce.
I mean, we talked about it. I talked about it with you on our break, but there are definitely some figures, some people that I would know by name in the anime and manga industry. Miyazaki obviously being one of them, but that's almost anyone can say that.
Yeah.
When it comes to anime and manga, I actually get attached to the studios more than the actual staff behind it, because usually that's what I affiliate with. Not saying that voice actors or actresses don't count, or directors don't count like Yuasa. But Yuasa, I know by name.
And you also know what you're going to expect. And that, like, you also aren't ready for, like, a color explosion of shock. Like, you know you're going to get your senses blown out, but you're going to enjoy every second of it.
So I think Yuasa is an extremely important person in anime and manga. I adore a lot of his work. And he is definitely a national treasure, not only because I believe he is, he also is, according to the Japanese government.
Yeah, he is a literal, like, cultural landmark of Japan. But that's not to say that there aren't others that are also deserving of a status like that, right? So this is like going to be one of a couple more sort of character/director analyses throughout the After Dark series. So, on top of Yuasa, we certainly hope there's going to be more people we can feature.
Yeah, so I think that is it. Will, any last parting thoughts before we head out?
Should we try and finish off Mind Game?
Fuck no.
No, okay, fine. There's you don't ever go full Yuasa. It's leave that to Yuasa himself.
And just get an Young Choi to
get you off the monkey bars.
Exactly. All right.
Thanks very much for listening. Hope to catch you in the next After Dark, or, tune back into our regular episodes. We should be having another one come out next week.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Peace.